What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles on my way to hitting Legend rank with what I would consider to be the best and most consistent anti-meta team for the Hisui Cup, with Shadow Abomasnow running Leafage as the fast move, Shadow Gallade and Lucario. This is a very glassy team, but I was able to gain over 550 elo in just 5 days with it, and in this video I'm going to run you through how to play this team against various different leads so that it's much easier for you to pick the team up and run it for yourself if you do want to make a final push before the leagues rotate on Friday. So with that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. Which Pokemon has been your MVP for the Go Battle League this season? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the first battle, and the main reason why I'm running Leafage on my Abomasnow, Gastrodon is absolutely everywhere in the Hisui Cup, mainly in the lead, and this opponent is running the Bite Hole team with two Shadow, usually Shadow Bite users in Skuntank and Drapion. They say swap into Skuntank. I'm not really sure if that's the right answer there, but I'm able to go for a Power Punch, counter them down before they even make it to a charge move, and the opponent comes back in with the Gastrodon. Now, they are still switch locked. We come back in straight away with my Abomasnow, and because I believe it probably will be a Drapion in the back, I'm actually going to shield that, preserve my health, and that way I can go straight for Icy Winds up against the Shadow Drapion, and now this is game over for the opponent. The first one is going to grab a shield from the opponent. We're going to make it to a second Icy Wind here, and then if this does connect, I'm just going to swap into my Gallade. They do let it go through, so now unfortunately Confusion is resisted damage, but it doesn't matter. They're double debuffed. We can tank these bites fairly well. They go for a Fell Stinger. We don't care. We can easily Confusion, farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So if you are struggling up against that very toxic team, then this is certainly the team to run. But into the next battle, another Gastrodon in the lead. This time they say swap into Munchlax, and here I'm just going to shield this up, and what I could do is go for a full counter farm down, but they bait with a Body Slam, so I'm actually going to go for the Power Up Punch here. Of course, I don't expect a shield. They're going to let it go through, but now I've boosted my attack. A Shadow Ball is probably going to be a lot more threatening up against the Gastrodon coming back in, so I'm going to fire it off here, and hopefully we grab a shield, and the opponent is going to use a shield, so all shields are even. We're going to come straight back in with our Shadow Abomasnow before they can swap out. I'm going to let the move go through as the opponent goes for a Body Slam, and they're going to swap into a Bastiodon, and this is a very comfortable matchup, even for Shadow Gallade, which is a very glassy Pokemon. We can just safely shield out the first charge move, farm up to the back-to-back close combats. That way, if they do shield the first one, we're not going to take as much damage from these smackdowns. But here, we're going to go for the close combat. The opponent actually lets that go through. Honestly, I probably should go for another close combat here, just because I anticipate the opponent will be shielding, so going for a second one would debuff my defense, but honestly, it doesn't make a difference here. We can come in with our Abomasnow, and you're going to see it looks like it's a really close game, but this was a fairly comfortable win for me. Unfortunately, because these are three very glassy Pokemon, it does get very close even when you hard counter the entire team, but we're able to take out the Gastrodon there and take that game. So you definitely do have to be quick when you swap out. But into the next battle, another Gastrodon in the lead. They're going to swap into Drapion, this time not running Bite. So we come in with our Lucario here. Going to let the first move go through. It's just going to be an Aqua Tail. We can tank that fairly well. I'm going to overfarm here. They make it to Aqua Tail number 2. Now, we should still live this. They might be able to Poison Sting, farm me down if they really want to, but actually, I don't really care. We're going to go for a Power Punch, grab the first shield. They need to double shield if they want to maintain alignment. And we're going to go for Power Punch number 2. They do double shield, and they do barely get the Poison Sting farm down. But Shadow Gallade is absolutely devastating in this meta, especially with a shield advantage. They're going to come back in with the Gastrodon. We're going straight for the Leaf Blade. This is easily going to be able to one-shot the Gastrodon, and they've got a Toxicroak in the back, so the opponent just concedes the match there. So going into the next battle, Empoleon in the lead. So Empoleon is a matchup where unfortunately they do just barely outpace you to the charge move because we are running Leafage and not Powder Snow. So I'm going to shield this up. I always shield it up. They actually go for Hydro Cannon there. It doesn't really make a difference. I was going to shield anyways. We're now going to go for the Energy Ball, and what I found is a lot of Empoleon, for whatever reason, let the move go through there. They're going to come in with a Froslass. Now either we can go for a charge move and then swap into our Shadow Gallade, or I can go for an Icy Wind, grab a shield and just force the opponent to throw their energy. Either way I'm happy with. We are going to let the move go through as they go for an Avalanche. We're now going to come in with the Shadow Gallade, or sorry, with the Lucario there, and now the opponent comes in with Gastrodon. Now this is a really tricky situation. They will outpace me to the next charge move, so I actually let that go through. I'm now going to go for the Leaf Blade here. Leaf Blade will probably grab the final shield from the opponent, and they are going to hit for super effective Mod Slap damage. but I can just shield up the Body Slam here, and I think this is the perfect farm down range to counter, farm them down, and come out with a Shadow Ball loaded as well. So even though that looked a little bit tricky for us, we can go for the Shadow Ball, taking out the Froslass, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we see Abomasnow into Empoleon once again. So we're going to see slightly different teams each time we play out this lead matchup. And here the opponent's going to swap into a Drifblim. So we're going to go straight for an Icy Wind here. Icy Wind will debuff their attack. And actually, this team is probably weakest to Drifblim out of all the Pokemon in this meta. It's really difficult to deal with. They go for Icy Wind there, so that's quite interesting. Maybe they don't have the Mystical Fire, or maybe they're making me think that they don't have it. But I'm going to swap Catch the Move onto my Shadow Gallade. And the opponent is going to go for a Mystical Fire, so that's a really good read by me. And I was actually quite proud of that one, because obviously, why would you go for Icy Wind when you've got Mystical Fire, unless it's to potentially make your opponent think that you're not running it. But here, we're going to go for a Close Combat. We are debuffed. I actually don't know if Close Combat does more or less damage than a Leaf Blade. When it is resisted damage, it probably does do slightly more, because Close Combat is incredible, but Leaf Blade also a very strong move. But either way, we can just safely let this move go through. Just a Night Slash. I'm going to stay in, try and force the opponent to throw their energy. They actually do get the full farm down, but it doesn't matter. This is just another Night Slash, so I'm going to let it go through, and now I will be able to very easily counter, farm down the Empoleon. I'm actually going to fire off a Charge Move here. Doesn't really make a difference, of course. We're going to sacrifice one fast move by throwing the move there, but we then boost our attack, and I'm able to counter, farm down Empoleon, and take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, another Empoleon in the lead. This time they're a Shadow. So once again, they're going to stay in this lead matchup, and they will just barely outpace us to the Charge Move. We're always going to shield the first Charge Move here as they go for the Drill Peck, and then they swap into Creselia. So at this point, excuse me there, we're going to go for the Icy Wind. I will be able to make it to another Icy Wind here, and I'm going to throw just as they make it to the next Charge Move, or the first Charge Move for the Creselia, and we grab a shield from Creselia as well. At this point, I'm not going to double shield my Abomasnow. The opponent goes for a Moonblast. We can tank that, and they're going to have to fire off another Charge Move to get rid of us. We make it to an Icy Wind. This still won't KO the Creselia, but it will put them into farm down range for either of my Pokemon in the back, so I'm happy to let the Abomasnow go down. Grass Knot will be taking us out despite it being resisted and double debuffed, but the opponent comes in with a Togekiss, and this is looking quite scary for us. We do at least make it to a Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to deal big damage to the Togekiss, and that actually puts them into potentially counter farm down range here, but it will be very close. We're going to shield the Aerial Ace, and one more counter takes out the Togekiss, so we don't take the charm damage. They come back in with Empoleon. We're going to go straight for a Power Punch. We're only one counter away from a second Power Punch. We grab the shield there. We make it to that Power Punch, and this will be enough damage to take out the Empoleon, and now I can counter, farm down Creselia, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, Froslass, very common lead, and typically with Froslass you can have two fighting types in the back. Not always, it might be like a Gastrodon or Empoleon, as they are also very common, but we're going to shield the first move here always, and the opponent swaps into Lucario, and here I'm just going to swap into my own Lucario, because what I found is if the opponent say swaps into Lucario, it's probably because they've got two fighting types, and the other fighting type is almost always going to be a Toxicroak, so it's always worth saving your Shadow Gallade in case that does happen. Now the opponent, of course, going to come back in with the Froslass if it is a Toxicroak in the back, because Confusion is going to deal absolutely massive damage there. We're going to go for the Leaf Blade. They shield this up, so I'm pretty confident that it will be a Toxicroak in the back. They go for Triple Axle, boosting their attack, which is unfortunate, but they swap into the Toxicroak, and here you can see those Confusions, two of them, nearly take out the Toxicroak. We go for the Leaf Blade. The opponent just lets that go through. We can come back in with the Abomasnow, go for the Leafage farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we see Froslass in the lead once again. So the opponent's going to swap into Lucario once again, do the exact same thing here. This time, I'm actually going to shield this up because I can come out of this matchup with pretty much a Shadow Ball loaded. So it's worthwhile, in my opinion anyways, as they're going to come in with the Froslass. We can go for the Shadow Ball. This should be grabbing a shield from the opponent. It does grab the shield, but they get a very nice Powder Snow farm down. Now we're going to wait out the switch clock. I am reading that it is going to be the Toxicroak in the back, so I'm actually going to come in with my Abomasnow here. Let this move go through. Hopefully it is not a Shadow Ball, but it is. It takes out the Abomasnow, and now it's all up to Shadow Gallade. The opponent is going to throw just before we make it to a Leaf Blade. I'm going to shield this up, of course. I've only got one shield remaining, and it is the Toxicroak in the back, and we can very easily Confusion, farm them down, go for the back-to-back Leaf Blade, so even if they do shield the first charge move, we will be winning the CMP tie if they had a charge move loaded, but the opponent recognizes they made a mistake, and I'm able to take that game. So going into the next battle, and definitely a lot harder, Drifblim in the lead, especially if it is double fighting. So here, instead of just swapping straight away, I actually banked some of the energy on my Abomasnow because I absolutely need it to take on that Drifblim. Now I can still counter farm them down, and I will be able to make it to a Shadow Ball up against the Drifblim, but I need to make it to an Icy Wind up against the Drifblim with my Abomasnow as well. So here I'm going to go for a bait. Typically I don't bait with Lucario, but up against Drifblim you absolutely need to bait there because now I can make it to another charge move. Of course this isn't enough for a Shadow Ball, but if the opponent wasn't counting correctly, I could have grabbed both shields there. We're now going to come back in with the Abomasnow. Unfortunately, I still don't have a charge move loaded. They go for Mystical Fire, and they swap into Toxicroak, so this is not ideal for me. If I was able to swap at the exact same time, predicting the swap there, I could have fully Confusion farmed them down before they even got off a charge move there, and then actually Shadow Gallade can do fairly well into Drifblim if we've got a lot of health, but unfortunately, they can just farm us down. There's no point in throwing here because even if I debuff them, a Mystical Fire will easily take out the Shadow Abomasnow, so unfortunately, we do end up losing that game. But GG's into that opponent there. Into the next game, we're going to see a Drifblim in the lead. This time they say swap into Drapion, and we do stay in just a little bit there because once again, we kind of need the energy on our Abomasnow. Drifblim is very difficult to deal with. I'm going to go for a Power Up Punch straight away up against this Drapion, and the opponent's going to let that go through. Now, since they've let that move go through, there's no way they can flip this matchup. I'm going to let the next move go through as well. Aquatel will get us very low. I'm now going to go for a Power Punch here on the CMP tie, and a Power Up Punch will be taking out the Drapion. Unfortunately, we don't have any residual energy, so they will just be able to farm us down with the Drifblim, but that's okay. They go for the 2 hexes there, get the farm down, and the opponent's going to throw straight away. So of course they do outpace us, but they give us a full leafage in for free, which is quite nice for us as that will help me with the pacing to the Icy Winds. We're going to go for the Icy Wind here, grab a shield from the Drifblim, and they will be able to outpace us to the next charge move as well. So still looking very tricky for us. They grab our final shield. We're going to go for the Icy Wind straight away, and what I'm going to do is try and catch the next charge move onto my Shadow Gallade because otherwise it will be game over, but I make the catch. And not only that, we also get the Confusion in, which is huge. They go for the Mystical Fire. That is double debuff, so it doesn't do that much damage. They do bank some energy. They swap into Bibarel. We're going to go for a Leaf Blade. We are debuffed, but Leaf Blade still takes out Bibarel, and we're able to make it to another Leaf Blade up against the Drifblim, and Leaf Blade, even resisted, even debuffed, takes out the Drifblim, and I'm able to take that game. So into the next battle, another Drifblim in the lead, and I have got 3 scenarios here just because Drifblim is very difficult to deal with, but you can see certain ways are going to play out a lot better than others. But here we're going to go for the Icy Wind. The opponent actually over farming a lot here, so that's really good for me as we do get off the Icy Wind first. I mean, it doesn't make that much of a difference because Mystical Fire without 2 debuffs is still going to take us out, but Icy Wind number 2 coming through, and at this point, since we grab both shields, I think I might as well just let this move go through here. The Mystical Fire doesn't actually take us out there because we debuffed them twice, but I'm going to swap into my Shadow Gallade. Now, I don't expect them to have a super hard answer to Gallade in the back because they've got Drifblim in the front, and it's going to be a Lucario. So, unfortunately, we are... Well, actually, no, I think they went for Shadow Ball there, so I possibly could have gotten away with just going for a Leaf Blade there, but just to be sure, I go for a close combat, taking out Lucario. They come back in with the Drifblim, but we get the farm down, and I tried to go for the close combat there, but the opponent takes me out with just 1 Waterfall. But because this is a Shadow Empoleon, they are taking huge damage from the counters, and we can throw Power Punch on the CMP tie, and this is certainly going to be enough to take out Empoleon, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Drifblim, definitely the hardest Pokemon to face in the lead with this team. You have to be very sort of smart about how you play that matchup. But into the next game, we're going to see Toxicroak in the lead. And this seems bad, it is pretty bad, but we just stay in with our Abomasnow. Of course, we can typically grab a shield advantage, come in with my Shadow Gallade, and that one Confusion that lands, that's going to deal huge damage. The opponent's going to swap into Abomasnow. I'm going to bank a Leaf Blade, then swap into my Lucario, because Lucario can sponge this damage reasonably well. It does resist the Weather Balls, although that does about 35% of our health. I can also take the next charge move here as well, so I will just let that go through. We can get the counter farm down. We come out with a Shadow Ball loaded as well. The opponent comes back in with their Toxicroak. Shadow Ball will be taking out the Toxicroak, and the opponent's got a Froslass in the back, so a little bit awkward there, but we bank the Leaf Blade, which is huge for us, and the opponent throws on alignment, so honestly, I don't think that matters too much. They go for a crunch. We make it to the back-to-back Leaf Blades anyways. The first one should be grabbing a shield from the Froslass, and it does, and this is certainly Leaf Blade range. So the second Leaf Blade is going to be KOing the Froslass, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we're going to see another Toxicroak in the lead. So once again, just going to stay in here. And if the opponent actually goes for a Mud Bomb, we would actually just barely live that and still get off the Icy Wind anyway. So you never want to use a shield. Ideally, you do want them to throw. And here the opponent actually doesn't shield up their Toxicroak, which is, I think, the only time it happens, so that's why I'm showcasing it. They do unfortunately just barely live it. We come in with our Shadow Gallade. We can Confusion farm them down, but if they've got something like a Drifblim in the back, it's game over. But it is a Froslass, which is a lot more well, a lot better for us, just because we are going to deal neutral damage with our Leaf Blades and they can't debuff us with an Icy Wind or a Mystical Fire. Now here, we are going to swap into our Lucario, catch the resisted Avalanche onto my Lucario. Avalanche still does over 50% of our health, but they swap into a Shadow Bit Barrel. We barely make it to a Power Up Punch in time. Power Up Punch is going to grab the final shield from the opponent. They get the farm down, but it doesn't matter. We've got Leaf Blade loaded. This will certainly be enough to take up a barrel. And now I can just Confusion, farm down the Froslass, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, another Toxicroak in the lead. This one's a really small Toxicroak. That's quite funny to see, actually. But here, once again, just going to play this out exactly the same. Go for the Icy Wind. Hopefully grab a shield. And we do grab that shield, so that's really nice for us. The opponent does get the counter farm down. We come in with Gallade, and the opponent swaps out straight away. So this is a little bit more awkward for us because they've got a Toxicroak that's very healthy and has a ton of energy. So not ideal, but we're going to go for a Leaf Blade here. Hopefully grab a shield from the opponent. We do grab the final shield, and now we can swap into our Lucario, and here I'm just going to call a bait. The opponent is going to go and fire off a Night Sash. That is resisted damage, so that's absolutely fine with me. Once again, just going to call the bait here. Is the opponent going to go for another Night Sash, and we can just go for a full counter farm down. Absolutely huge. And now we come out with the Shadow Ball loaded, gonna fire it off straight away, winning CMP up against the Toxicroak, taking them out, and they've got a Froslass in the back. We still got a shield remaining, so this is looking perfect for us. I actually go for the extra Confusion here, just because, of course, if I expected the opponent to throw on alignment, which they did end up doing, we get that Confusion in for free, and now Leaf Blade is certainly going to take out the Froslass, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into next game, we see a Shadow Drapion in the lead. Now Drapion is also quite a tricky lead matchup for us. We're going to stay in. This one is running Poison Sting as the fast move, so whilst it is super effective, it's less fast move pressure than the bites, and also, unfortunately, they do get a crunch debuff there. So we're going to go for an Icy Wind. Icy Wind grabs a shield, and now I'm going to try and swap and catch the resisted crunch onto my Lucario. It looks like I've done that, and it is the crunch, so that is resisted. It's also debuffed, so doesn't do too much damage there. And at this point, I think I should live a Night Sash, so I'm going to let this move go through. The opponent does go for the Night Sash. We can now go for the Shadow Ball as it just comes up, and Shadow Ball is going to do huge damage to the Gliscor. It barely doesn't take them out there, but it doesn't really matter. We are now going to wait out our Switch Clock. I believe they do have a charge move loaded, which is unfortunate, but we can tank this better than a crunch from the Drapion, so I let it go through. It is the Night Sash, and now we should be able to outpace them to the Icy Wind here. Icy Wind is going to do some pretty decent damage to the Drapion. It gets them very low. They do make it to a charge move. I'm just going to let Abomasnow go down, and hopefully Shadow Gallade can beat whatever is in the back, but unfortunately it is a Drifblim, so they did take one turn to swap out, so that does mean I can go straight for the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade will be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and the opponent does throw at good timing here, throwing after one Hex. We can now go for two more Confusions, make it to a Leaf Blade, and Leaf Blade is resisted. It's debuffed. Can it KO? No, unfortunately it doesn't. The opponent lives with a couple of HP remaining. They can go for the Icy Wind, taking out our Shadow Gallade, and unfortunately we do end up losing that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, another Drapion, and this time they are running Bite, so this is still fine. We're going to go for an Icy Wind here, and what I found is that some opponents actually ran the Gastrodon double dark poisons with Bite, but they ran it in a slightly different order just to mix it up and also make it a little bit more confusing. So here I'm able to randomly swap and catch the crunch there. That wasn't actually like counting on my end, it was just kind of vibes that I swapped out there. But the opponent's going to come in with the Gastrodon, and the reason they didn't swap and just come straight in with the Gastrodon is because they've got Skuntank in the back and they don't want to be switch locked with their Gastrodon in here. So quite smart play by the opponent, but we can come in with our Abomasnow, go straight for the Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to debuff their attack. The opponent's going to let that go through. Luckily for me, it is not a Shadow Skuntank, so I can actually tank these bites reasonably well here. The opponent is going to fire off the last second charge move. We've still got two shields remaining. They go for a Trailblaze, boosting up their attack, but I don't think it makes a difference there. And now we're going to farm to the back-to-back Leaf Blades, but do we live the Mud Slap damage here? It's going to be close. but we do barely hang on. We can go for Leaf Blade number 2, and Leaf Blade is going to take out the Gastrodon, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, Bastiodon in the lead. So this is absolutely awful. This is one of my first battles with this team. So I swap into Lucario. I would definitely recommend safe swapping into your Shadow Gallade. The opponent's going to come in with Drifblim here. I tried to throw the Shadow Ball on the CMP tie with a potential Mystical Fire. Otherwise, I'm not going to get off the energy. And what I should do with Lucario, especially up against Drifblim, is bait a lot more because they do typically just shield the first charge move. Luckily for me, the opponent goes for an Icy Wind, so probably not running Mystical Fire. So I'm going to let the next move go through as well. We can now come back in with our Abomasnow, and I actually don't need to shield this. I'm going to let it go through. It is just the Icy Wind, and now I can overfarm just a little bit here, go for the Icy Wind before they make it to the next charge move. This should still be enough damage to take out the Drifblim, and now we're going to swap into our Shadow Gallade, and the opponent's got a Froslass in the back. We've got a shield advantage, and now things are looking a lot better for us. We're going to go straight for Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade grabs a shield from the opponent. And at this point, I'm actually just going to commit to a full Confusion farm down, double shield my Shadow Gallade, as I will come out of this matchup with a close combat loaded, and Bastiodon is absolutely not going to appreciate a double super effective close combat from a Shadow Gallade. It one-shots the Bastiodon, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, Bastiodon in the lead once again. So this time I'm going to safe swap into my Shadow Gallade, and the opponent comes in with a Togekiss. So this is looking like a pretty toxic team so far. We're going to go straight for the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to deal some decent damage, but unfortunately doesn't threaten a shield. And we are going to wait out the switch slot, come in with our Shadow Abomasnow. Unfortunately, Leafage is resisted, but we still get the farm down there. But the opponent can come back in straight away with their Bastiodon. So I'm actually going to go for an Icy Wind here, just because I believe this will now allow me to make it to an Energy Ball up against the Bastiodon, and we do just barely get there. This might be crucial damage here in this matchup. It gets them into the yellow health range. We come in with our Lucario. We need something in the back that we can beat with Lucario. They go for Flamethrower, and it's a Torterra, Shadow Torterra as well, so we are resisting Razor Leafs, but we're still taking so much damage because Lucario is a very glassy Pokemon. We're going to ramp up our attack with a Power Punch here. Power Punch is going to grab the final shield from the opponent, and we do get the counter farm down, but we leave with like 1 HP remaining, and the opponent's able to double resist this smackdown, farm me down, and take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, and it's the exact same team. So I've actually faced this team maybe 4 or 5 times, so probably someone made a video on it, because otherwise I don't know why you would run it. But here we're going to play this out exactly the same so far, but instead I'm going to come in with my Abomasnow here, still get the Leafage farm down, but instead of throwing a charge move, I'm actually going to let Bastiodon fully farm me down. And you might think, why on earth are you doing that? But the reason is I can come in with my Lucario. Their switch clock is still up, or still not up, sorry. So I get a few more counters off, which means when they do come in with their Torterra, I can go for a Power Punch earlier, ramping up my attack sooner, and that means I'm going to be able to take them out faster than in the previous game, and hopefully this will be the difference in this matchup. But you're going to see something quite awkward in this battle here. Every time I went for Power Punch, I was getting like this weird stutter lag where I could throw only one fast move afterwards, which really threw me off and almost cost me the game, but I do just barely hang on. I make it to the Power Punch, taking out the Bastiodon, and I'm able to take that game. And if you are running this team and you run into that team, another way to just completely destroy that team is if you come in straight away with your Shadow Abomasnow instead of waiting out the switch clock after the Gallade goes down. And by the way, that's like the reverse with the Shadow Razor Leafer in the lead, and they safe swap into Bastiodon. That one's a lot easier for this team. But into the next battle, we're going to see Creselia in the lead. So we're going to go straight for an Icy Wind here. Somehow I lose CMP, and that was like, what the heck is that? They go for a Moonblast. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the charge move just didn't register. So we didn't lose CMP, but we didn't get off our charge move, which means we took a non-debuffed Moonblast unnecessarily, which is a bit annoying, but it doesn't really matter because 2 charge moves will be taking us out anyways. And unfortunately, 2 Icy Winds barely won't KO this Creselia, but we're going to come in with the Shadow Gallade. We do get the Confusion farm down, and the opponent comes in with Froslass, which is pretty big for us because the opponent's then going to throw on Alignment, huge, as now I can go and shield up the Avalanche. Gonna go farm to the back-to-back Leaf Blades here. The first one coming through. This should be grabbing a shield from the opponent. It does grab the shield. We're gonna go for the second Leaf Blade here. Does this grab the final shield from the opponent? If it does, I will be shielding my Gallade. because I don't know what's in the back. It could be something like a Gastrodon in the back, but it's actually a Bastiodon, and this is going to be very simple for us because once again, we can just go straight for the close combat, and close combat one-shots the Bastiodon, and I'm able to take that game. So what I found when battling Creselia in the lead is there's typically a Bastiodon in the back, so just be aware of that if you are running this team, or even if you're not running this team. If you see Creselia in the lead, there might be a Bastiodon in the back. So we're going to go for an Icy Wind here. The opponent makes a nice catch onto Drapion, but that's actually perfectly fine with me. I'm going to bank another Icy Wind. Now I come in with my Lucario. I can very easily tank whatever they throw because they are debuffed. And they go for an Aqua Tail, not going to do too much damage there. We can get the counter farm down, and I come out with a Shadow Ball loaded as well. So if they come back in with the Creselia, I can just fire off this Shadow Ball immediately, and this is going to do big damage to the Creselia. So the opponent uses their shield there. I am going to see that I'm just going to let this move go through, actually. I don't really care if they go for a Moonblast or a Grass Knot there. Unfortunately, that doesn't quite take us out, but if it is a Bastiodon in the back, we've still got 2 shields remaining. I could come in with my Abomasnow, but I'm actually going to come in with my Shadow Gallade here and just farm up a ton of energy up against Creselia, because this is going to allow me to come out with so much loaded energy. It doesn't really matter what they've got in the back. We've got a loaded Abomasnow and a loaded Shadow Gallade, so we're going to go for the Leaf Blade here. We've got back-to-back charge moves loaded. The first one is actually going to take out the Creselia as they no shield it, and now all we have to do is farm to the back-to-back close combats, and this is once again easily going to be enough damage to take out the Bastiodon. They shield the first one, but we've got back-to-back loaded, so this second charge move, absolutely overkill, taking out the Bastiodon, and I'm able to take that game. Into next game, we're going to see Hisuian Electrode in the lead. They're typically going to safe swap straight away because expecting us to run Powder Snow, they swap into Munchlax, and this is really good for me. I'm going to go for a Power Punch straight away, a bit unnecessary. I could overfarm a little bit more, and the earlier that I throw a Power Punch, the less farm I get because, of course, I boost up my attack there, but they full send the Bulldoze this time, so we're going to go for the counter farm down, and the opponent's got a Shadow Gallade in the back, so I'm just going to go straight for the Shadow Ball here. I could have baited and potentially made it to a second Power Punch, but it doesn't make much of a difference, really. We're now going to come in with our Shadow Gallade of our own, and we're going to shield this up. I will be able to Confusion, farm them all the way down. The opponent swaps into Electrode, so I bank a Leaf Blade. I swap back into my Shadow Abomasnow, and this should be game over. We go for the Icy Wind. Icy Wind grabs the final shield, and now these Wild Charges, whilst they do deal pretty big damage considering they are resisted, 2 Wild Charges won't be enough damage to KO because of the Icy Wind debuff, so I can let the move go through. We're going to go and fire off the Icy Wind straight away. We're low enough where only 1 Confusion will KO, and they won't come out with a charge move loaded, but we've got the Leaf Blade banked, so we can throw it straight away into the Gallade, and this is going to be taking out the Gallade. But I think they have just force closed the app there, but I'm able to take out the Gallade and take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into next game, we see Shadow Abomasnow into another Hisuian Electrode, so I'm expecting them to swap out straight away once again, and they swap into Shadow Drapion. So we're going to respond with our Lucario. I actually overfarm here to a potential Blaze Kick. Honestly, it took me ages to realize that Lucario does actually have Blaze Kick here, so I end up grabbing a shield from the Shadow Drapion, which is pretty huge for me because now I can go for a second Power Up Punch here. Might grab both shields straight away. No, the opponent is going to let that go through. They overfarm for some reason, not really sure why, but now honestly should have just committed to the Shadow Ball there. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I suppose I am baiting like I've got a Blaze Kick once again, but either way I get the Froslass into very low health range already. I'm going to use my shield here as they go for the Avalanche, and I'm going to double shield. I figured I don't need my shield on my Abomasnow, so I might as well just double shield here. They swap into Electrode. Actually, I just took them out with the Confusion, but either way, we go for the close combat, one-shotting the Hisuian Electrode, and I'm able to take that game. Alright, so going into the next battle, we see Abomasnow mirror match. Unfortunately, we are running Leafage, they're running Powder Snow, so they're going to outpace us, and they are dealing neutral damage with the fast move. So this isn't great for me. I'm going to let the first move go through, then I swap into my Lucario. Unfortunately, the opponent has a Gastrodon in the back, so possibly could have swapped out earlier there, or maybe swapped into my Shadow Gallade just so I'm not hard countered. That is typically why I did swap into my Gallade most of the time instead of the Lucario. But either way, we're going to come in with our Shadow Abomasnow, going to shield the first move. We probably are in Body Slam range, so might as well play it safe here. Going to try and go for the Leafage Farm down, but I'm not able to do so. So I end up throwing an Icy Wind on the CMP tie. Icy Wind takes out the Gastrodon. If they come back in with the Abomasnow, I can make it to another Icy Wind in time. This might actually KO them from this range, but the opponent uses their final shield, so they're going to swap into Empoleon, and this is a really smart play here. This is basically forcing me to go for a close combat, which I don't really want to do, because close combat will debuff my defense, but the opponent's going to throw their energy, so we might still have some play here. They go for a Weather Ball, but the opponent has back-to-back charge moves already loaded, and unfortunately a Weather Ball easily takes out the Shadow Gallade, and as well, we're too low. The opponent can just Powder Snow, farm me down, and unfortunately we do end up losing that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see another Shadow Abomasnow in the lead. So I'm actually going to play this out exactly the same, except this time the opponent over farms here, allowing me to make it to an Icy Wind, and we connect. So this time I say swap into my Lucario, baiting out Toxicroak instead. And here I have no idea what I'm doing. I made it to the Shadow Ball. I bait with a Power Punch, completely unnecessary there, but it actually doesn't really matter because we grab the shield anyways. It's a very obvious shield from the opponent. And now they're actually not going to make it to back-to-back charge moves as well, which is pretty huge for me because I go for the Confusion Farm down, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. They're going to come in with their Gastrodon, so we're going to go for the Leaf Blade. This is easily going to one-shot the Gastrodon here, so the opponent uses their shield. We're going to swap into our Abomasnow. I can just let this move go through. They've got quite a lot of energy here. They go for a Weather Ball, but the opponent probably not going to go and throw that charge move there, because otherwise I just Confusion Farm them down with my Gallade and make it to another Leaf Blade. But this way I make it just to an Icy Wind, but it doesn't matter. I'm able to Confusion Farm them down and take that game. So going into the next battle, we see Munchlax in the lead. Now, I did a couple of battles up against Munchlax. I didn't record all of my battles just because it was like 5 days worth of recording. It would have been a lot of footage to watch over, but here I do unfortunately lose this game, but it is very close. But I kind of realized how to play this out the second time I battled up against Munchlax, and what I noticed is that it's actually quite easy, or it's better for me to just fight for switch advantage there, but the opponent gives up switch advantage, swapping into their Toxicroak. Unfortunately though, because we don't respond instantly to that swap, they do make it to a Mud Bomb. I'm going to be able to make it to a Leaf Blade here up against the Gastrodon, and this should be grabbing a shield from the opponent. It does grab the shield. We can go for a second Leaf Blade here, but actually, okay, yeah, I'm going to shield this up. I have to shield this up. We're going to go for Leaf Blade number 2. This is going to grab the final shield from the opponent, but it's looking very difficult for us. They can go for the Munchlax farm down. They're going to go and fire for charge move straight away. They actually throw on alignment as well, which is pretty huge for me. It's just a Body Slam. Now here, I was expecting the opponent to try and make a catch onto the Munchlax, and it didn't end up coming. So there, I could have just gone for the Shadow Ball, and I think I probably could have counter farmed down the Munchlax as well. So unfortunate there, but GG's to that opponent. And into the next game, and I actually don't think I got a single win up against a Shadow Magnezone in the lead. Unfortunately, a lot of them just had double flying types in the back, and there was just nothing I could do. But here we're going to go for a Shadow Ball, grabbing a shield from the opponent, and what I said earlier is up against Drifblim, we should always bait with a Power Up Punch, just because otherwise they can overfarm quite considerably, and that Mystical Fire is absolutely devastating up against my Shadow Abomasnow. But luckily for me, the opponent did throw pretty much straight away there, so I can at least make it to an Icy Wind. It doesn't quite KO, so I have to swap into my Shadow Gallade there. Can't afford to be shields down up against a Shadow Magnezone, because that thing is absolutely deadly, similar to the Shadow Gallade that I'm using on my team. But here we're going to go for a Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade, unfortunately, we are debuffed. Probably could have committed to a close combat there, because we have to just let this move go through. Mirror Shot going to do more damage than a Night Slash. But yeah, it's unfortunately not looking too good for us. I can go for the full farm down, but I think we're just a little bit too low here. I'm going to commit to the farm down. We're going to go for an Icy Wind here just to debuff their attack. Icy Wind does grab the final shield, but unfortunately we don't reach the next charge move there, and we do end up losing that game. So GG's to that opponent, and into the next game. I actually don't have a Pachirisu, so I couldn't make the graphic for it, but pretty similar to the Magnezone in terms of the team composition, but this is a lot easier for the Abomasnow. Now, what I recommend if you do see a Pachirisu, there's actually no reason to throw a charge move that early, because the opponent was just waiting for us to throw a charge move before swapping into their Gliscor. because Pachirisu is very bulky, but the pure electric type fast and charge moves that it has is going to do literally nothing to Abomasnow. So what I would advise is that you just overfarm considerably with Abomasnow before you end up throwing. That way, if they do swap out into something like a Gliscor or a Drifblim in the back, you're actually prepared because you've still got a lot of energy, but the opponent is going to let the close combat go through, which takes out Pachirisu. And luckily for me, they've got Abomasnow in the back. So I'm actually going to come in with my own Abomasnow here, hoping the opponent would throw straight away, but they do actually do a very good job of overfarming and throwing just before we make it to the next charge move. But it still doesn't matter, unfortunately, for them, because we've got Lucario in the back. We can tank 2 charge moves coming from the Abomasnow. They go for the energy ball, but I'm able to make it to a Power Punch just about in time here. Power Punch will be enough to take out the Abomasnow, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we see Hisuian Samurott in the lead. So I didn't see this too often, but they typically had a Gliscor in the back. So we're going to unfortunately lose CMP. This must be a IV dependent thing, because sometimes I won CMP up against the Gliscor, sometimes I lost it, but either way we go for an Icy Wind, and we are actually going to stay in this matchup here. I'm going to shield the next move, of course. Even with the debuff, a Night Slash will take us out, but we can make it to another Icy Wind here. This should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and it does exactly that. So now we're going to come in with our Lucario, and I'm just going to shield this out. I'm going to play it safe. The opponent's going to full send the Earthquake there, and that is now going to allow me, I think, to just fully counter-fire them down. No, we end up throwing a Power Punch. Doesn't really matter too much because Power Punch going to be taking them out, boosting our attack, and now we can just go for a Shadow Ball into the Toxicroak. We are boosted. Shadow Ball takes out the Toxicroak, and the opponent comes back in with the Samurott. They are going to have to fire for charge move. They do fire it off at the last second, but Icy Wind takes out Lucario. We can Leafage, farm down the Samurott, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Lopunny in the lead. So I only saw one of these, and unfortunately, not very good lead for us. Gonna say swap into my Lucario. Probably should be swapping into my Gallade. I think, again, this is one of the earlier battles that I did. They go for Body Slam. We actually lived that, so I can go for a Shadow Ball. I thought I'll undercharge this because it won't quite KO. But actually, it might have just KO'd there. And if they let that go through, which they did, and it KO'd, we could have flipped that game there. But unfortunately, they come back in with the Lopunny. They're going to go for a charge move. I'm just going to call that they're going for a triple axle. It's a Fire Punch. It nearly one-shots us. We don't get off the Icy Wind. We come in with our Shadow Gallade, and they've got Empoleon in the back. And unfortunately, it's game over. But the opponent gives me the win there, and that was a former legend. So what you will find is that they're not entitled to, or nobody's entitled to have legends forfeit games up against them. But if your opponent is seeing that you're not legend yet, they completely hard counter you, there might be a chance that if you just play out the battle until the end, they might just gift you a free win. So definitely play out your battles until the end if you do come up against a previous legend. But into the final battle, this was the final battle I did with this team in my final set. And luckily for me, this is like the best case scenario in terms of team composition that I am seeing. The opponent led with Gastrodon, safe swapped into Bibarel. I just stayed in there. We come in with our Lucario. We can now go for a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball probably going to grab a shield from the opponent. No, they let it go through. We take out the Gastrodon, and this is game over, and this is going to crown a 4-on-1 set that I had with this team at 2968 ELO range, and that will allow me to hit 3010 ELO, reaching legend rank, and there we go. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.